She was barely 5 feet tall, couldn't read a single line of a book, and carried a bounty that wouldn't even buy a good horse. $40, dead or alive. And yet, this same woman outsmarted slave patrols, crossed rivers blindfolded by fog, silenced dogs with swamp water, and liberated hundreds of people with nothing but faith, cunning, and a revolver that never rusted. You've heard her whispered as the Moses of her people. But tonight, forget Sunday school pictures. Tonight, meet Harriet Tubman, the general America forgot to salute. A woman who turned midnight trails into military campaigns, who rewrote the battlefield long before history allowed her to wear the uniform. Picture the most feared liberator in the South. Do you see a cavalry colonel with saber scars? A grizzled man in blue with medals clinking on his chest? Wrong. Try instead. A black woman, formerly enslaved, wrapped in a shawl, leaning on a walking stick carrying a 6-shot pistol, and marching under the absolute certainty that freedom was God's signature written on every soul. This is the story of how Harriet Tubman, once a fugitive with a bounty, became commander of an invisible army that census books never counted but history could never erase. Harriet Tubman was born Araminta Ross in 1822 on Maryland's eastern shore, where cotton rows doubled as prison bars and human beings were worth more mortgage than married. By age 6, she was rented out, a child forced to haul muskrat traps in swamps colder than fever, to rock white babies until her arms went numb, to sleep on floors where rats scuttled like whispers. At 12, fate cracked her skull, literally. An overseer, angry at another boy, threw a 2-pound iron weight. It smashed into her head. She collapsed. For months, she drifted between sleep and visions. She woke up with pain that never left her, seizures that struck like lightning, and dreams so vivid she believed God was tugging her straight into prophecy. She learned 2 things. The enslavers feared visions more than whips, and prayer could outstrip any doctor's hand. Years later, she married a freeman, John Tubman. But marriage vows meant nothing when a wife's name was still inked as property. In 1849, word slipped through the cabins. Her master's heirs would sell her down south, the death sentence of cotton fields deeper than hell. That night, Harriet pressed a finger to her lips, asked the moon to keep quiet, and stepped into the woods with only cornbread in her pocket and the North Star blazing like a lantern. 90 miles through swamps, hunger, and fear, she crossed into Pennsylvania. Free, but freedom felt hollow while her family remained in chains. She swore an oath to the trees and the night sky. I'll return, and I'll bring every soul with me. Most fugitives escaped once. Harriet went back 13 times. She wore disguises, old men's hats, farmer's boots, faded shawls, and carried a revolver she called her insurance. She joked it never fired on the Sabbath, but truth was, she'd raise it if anyone tried to turn back and risk the group. She moved with strategy that would shame generals. She launched escapes on Saturday nights, buying fugitives a head start before Monday's reward posters hit print. She spoke in riddles, leaving patrols chasing shadows. She trusted hymns as code. Wade in the water meant wash your scent in the river. Steal away signaled a midnight rendezvous. She ferried a mother with 6 children across rivers, a 200-pound man folded inside a potato crate, and even babies drugged. With paregorican hidden under quilts, through forests thick with hounds, and not once, did she lose a single passenger. Her bounty rose to $10,000, enough to buy a mansion in today's money. Posters screamed dead or alive, but Harriet slipped past them like smoke, guided by stars and instinct sharper than any bloodhound's nose. By 1860, she had personally rescued 70 family members and coordinated freedom for another 200, but she was just warming up. Because in 1861, the nation itself exploded. The Civil War lit a new battlefield, and Harriet Tubman stepped right onto it. If this feels like the Harriet Tubman your textbook never introduced, hit that like and subscribe. The next chapter is about to pull you onto a Union gunboat with Harriet at the helm. When Union recruiters landed in South Carolina's Port Royal, Harriet didn't hesitate. She nursed soldiers with wild root medicines, cured dysentery with swamp herbs when morphine ran out, and whispered comfort into the ears of men too broken to move. But Harriet wasn't made to sit in tents. She became a spy, recruiting enslaved dock workers who fed her Confederate troop counts, river depths, and fort locations. Commanders laughed until her hand-drawn maps guided. Union boats safely passed mines that had sunk better men. Then came the Combahee River Raid, June 1st, 1863. 3 Union gunboats glided up the South Carolina waters. The night was moonless. On deck stood Harriet Tubman, giving the orders. Her regiment, black soldiers led by Colonel James Montgomery, stormed plantations, set mansions ablaze, cut telegraph lines, and blew plantation whistles to signal freedom. Families burst from the woods, clutching infants, dragging livestock, sprinting through gunfire straight onto Union boats. By dawn, over 700 enslaved people had escaped on one single mission. Harriet Tubman became the first woman in U.S. history to plan and lead an armed raid. The papers called her General Tubman. Washington never gave her the rank. She only smiled. "I done the work. Let the men who need buttons and braid keep the titles." For 2 more years, she scouted, spied, healed, and fought, emerging with bullet holes in her clothes but none in her spirit. When the war ended, Harriet received no pension, no land, and little thanks. She returned to Auburn, New York, broke but unbowed. She turned her house into a home for elderly freedmen, baking gingerbread, selling root beer, and autographing her picture for coins just to fund the roof. She battled Congress for 18 long years just to claim a pension, not for her own service, but for her second husband's, and she never stopped fighting for women's rights. Driving a mule cart to rallies, she declared, "I was a woman soldier when polite ladies said war wasn't ladylike." In 1913, Harriet Tubman took her last breath in the same Auburn rest home she had built for others. Surrounded by friends, roses, and former fugitives, she whispered, "I go to prepare a place for you." They buried her with military honors. A Union flag draped across her coffin. History hides heroes in plain sight. Share this story so classrooms everywhere can hear the footsteps of the Army Harriet led. From Maryland's cotton rows to South Carolina's rivers, Harriet Tubman transformed everything slavery tried to steal from her. Pain became foresight. Memory became maps. Faith became fire. She built an army of shadows out of mothers, children, fugitives, and soldiers, and marched them straight into the light. 300 souls walked free because she refused to keep freedom for herself. 700 more because she turned war into liberation. She never signed her name on paper, yet her signature is etched across the soul of America. So the next time you touch a $20 bill, remember Harriet Tubman wasn't just escaping. She was leading, and she left behind a lesson carved into every trail she walked. Freedom isn't gifted. Freedom is taken, mile by mile, night by night, by those brave enough to walk back into the darkness and guide others out.